Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Brian O'Neill.
And on the Newsmaker Show line this morning, it's Alfred Village Police Chief Paul Griffith. Chief, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
Well, this is just a breaking story. There was a press conference last night at 5:30 in Geneseo held by Livingston County Sheriff Tom Doherty. And the announcement was that a skeleton was found in a wooded area. I believe it was off Route 20A in Geneseo. And what they're saying this morning, the Rochester area media outlets and the LCN.com that all covered the story is that the Sheriff Tom Doherty, believes that it's David Clyde Morgan's body. For those who don't remember, in July 2018, David Clyde Morgan and his girlfriend were pulled over. In Geneseo, David Clyde Morgan pulled a gun and ran into a cornfield and got away. That his girlfriend was arrested, and she was, I believe she's still doing time for that. Apparently she took part, is what they're saying, in the pulling out. I don't know if she had a weapon on her, but she was considered an accomplice. She was charged and imprisoned. Wondering, Alfred Village Police Chief Paul Griffith, did the Alfred Police Department take part in the search, or have you been on the lookout for David Clyde Morgan since the July 2018 pullover incident in Livingston County?
Well, we weren't involved in the search anything more than what we refer to as a bolo, be on the lookout for. That's been, I think, kind of standing since that incident happened, and probably still will stand until they confirm that it's actually him. I'm assuming maybe they might get DNA to confirm it's him. So as it stands right now, we can't assume that it's him. I would think until there's real confirmation on it. So that bolo would still probably stand till they find that out. But it sounds like, I'm sure if Sheriff Doherty's confident that it's him, it's probably a good chance that it is him.
Talking to Alfred Village Police Chief Paul Griffith. Word is out of Alfred that Alfred, not sure if it's the village or the town, but Alfred might be building a new sidewalk along Route 244 in the Alfred area. Do Alfred Police have any thoughts on that issue?
There is some public safety concerns that with 244. There is no sidewalks, only just down at a little ways. Sidewalks should help with pedestrian traffic. People not walking in the road or staying out of the lanes of traffic. I think I can see both sides of the story. There is a lot of animosity between the town and the village over the sidewalk going in. Not really sure where it lies. The police department's not really part of that. The only thing that I've really said to anybody is a sidewalk down through there I don't think would be a bad thing for the pedestrian traffic. Now, the politics involved in that is something that we as a police department try and stay out of.
Sure thing. Well, Hot Dog Day is coming up in Alfred. Do they have the days, the date and the time and the location worked out for that yet, Paul Griffith?
They do. It's going to be April 25th is actually Hot Dog Day. I know it's referred to as Hot Dog Day weekend, but it's really just the one-day festival. But for the students, it's obviously more. We usually start preparing for Hot Dog Day. We've actually already had meetings for it. But we usually start bringing in personnel and equipment Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Into Sunday morning is usually when we have the extra patrols on for Hot Dog Day weekend, as we refer to it.
Okay. Now let's get to the topic of bail reform. The village board in Alfred recently passed a resolution on that, and wanted to get your thoughts on the resolution and how are things going with bail reform in general as far as it affects Alfred.
Well, so far we haven't had too many issues adapting to it. But really what it comes down to with bail reform is the backside of things, the discovery side, which is one thing that I don't think gets out into the public too much. And the discovery side is how everything gets collected by us as police and getting presented to the district attorney's office. We used to have quite a bit of time to do that with most cases. Now they've severely cut that time down. We have to, after we make an arrest, have 15 days to get everything to the district attorney's office. So what you're going to start seeing now, and we're only 2 months into this, so a lot of our stuff that we're investigating now, you're not really going to see the problems with this for probably a few more months. It takes longer to put a case together without an arrest. So if somebody, or say, I'll give you an example, breaks into your house and we show up and we catch them, we're probably not going to arrest them right away. We're going to finish up the investigation and then get a warrant and go arrest them, which leaves them out on the streets to do more, just because of the way the discovery works. So, the whole appearance ticket thing aside, we're not going to be able to do as much as quickly as we used to. It may still have the same result in the end. And if the person's convicted, they'll still go to prison. All that bail reform does is just stop them going to jail, which is sometimes the more important thing to get somebody that's immediately dangerous off the street. I think you've been seeing in New York City where they've had incidents where somebody's assaulted somebody, they've been arrested, and then they've been pretty much an hour or two later turned back out on the streets to do it again. We haven't had any particular crimes like that yet, but it's just a matter of time. It's not if, it's just when.
Now, Alfred, and we're talking the two colleges here, you have out-of-town students, out-of-state students, etc. You say there hasn't been any situations that have arisen yet. Has there been any talk on how to deal with it when you do have a suspect that's pulled over and given a ticket for a more serious offense if they're not from the area?
We got to go by what state law says. If the crime does not warrant us putting them in jail, which it has to be a pretty big crime now, they get an appearance ticket. We've had one student who is not even from this country. We've written 25 tickets to, and I think he's on a second or third DWI, and he's never seen the inside of a jail cell. We've had some fairly big crimes that have happened here where we've had to write appearance tickets to people that we probably wouldn't have in the past because they are a flight risk. And one of the criteria used to be for a flight risk was where they lived. If they weren't local and we couldn't just, say drive to the neighboring town and pick them up if they didn't show up for court, we would usually try and get bail to make sure that they came back. We don't have that luxury now. Now we're writing appearance tickets to people that live in New York City, as far away as Los Angeles, and like I said, people in other countries. We get a lot of foreign students here that now are getting appearance tickets, and if they don't show up for court, there's not a whole lot we can do to really go get them and make them show up for court for each appearance, and eventually they just go home.
You cannot contact the schools, the dorms, the RAs, the RDs.
Well, we can do all that, but really it's up to the individual person because they are adults here, even though they refer to them as college kids, college students. They're adults. It's up to them to show back up for court now. It's their responsibility, not the schools, not the RAs, not the dorms, not their parents. So if they don't show up, the court can issue a warrant, but even if we serve that warrant and bring them back in, the court doesn't have a whole lot of teeth to put them in jail necessarily because the judges are mandated to set the most restrictive bail amount that they can, which for a college student supposedly is very little, according to some of our judges and what they're being told.
Talking to Alfred Village Police Chief Paul Griffith. Right now we're on the topic of bail reform. It was interesting. Former Governor David Paterson weighed in on the issue over the weekend on 970 The Answer. That's a New York City station, talking to John Castamedius. And former Governor David Paterson told John Castamedius on the show two things. One, too many people were let out of Rikers, and it's causing problems for New York City crime. Two, the amount of people statewide who are able to walk away from serious charges because they're issued an appearance ticket. The governor said it's too many cases of those, and it's endangering the public. Your thoughts on what former Governor David Paterson said there, Police Chief Griffith?
He's absolutely right. I think most departments around the area all have their stories, their horror stories, as you refer to them, where somebody that should have gone to jail was given an appearance ticket, released just to go out and commit more crimes. I know there was an officer in Cuba who got into a fight with a guy in their parking lot of their police department, and the reason the guy was fighting with him was because he knew he couldn't go to jail. He knew he was just going to get an appearance ticket, which was all right with him. Didn't have a problem with being arrested, just knew that he couldn't be put in jail, so he picked a fight with a policeman there. They ended up taking the guy to the hospital, had him treated for his injuries, and then brought him back, processed him, and then released him. You've got incidents like that, and we've had an incident last summer where we arrested a guy 3 different times for burglaries. Each time we put him in jail. If this were to happen now, each time we would have had to release him. Now, the first 2 times he did pay bail and bailed himself out. The last time he stayed in jail for quite a few months. They wouldn't release him because obviously he has a propensity to go into people's houses and burglarize them. So if this was the case now, he would have never seen the inside of a jail cell.
Talking to Alfred Police Chief Paul Griffith, Congressman Tom Reed, and downstate Congressman Peter King, Syracuse Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, and a Staten Island Congressman named Max Rose, who's a Democrat. They've all signed. These Democrats and Republicans have all signed onto a letter sent to Governor Cuomo complaining about the new state bail reform laws. Police Chief Griffith, are you hearing anything about possible changes to the new changes as far as what Governor Andrew Cuomo and the New York City controlled legislature would like to do? Are you hearing anything about what Governor Cuomo wanting to make any changes?
I haven't heard anything about it. I've heard legislators want change. From what I've heard up till recently, unless there's been a change I haven't heard about, he's pretty much said that let's wait and see how this actually goes. It's too soon to tell, so let's wait and see. It's almost like he's doubling down on this law that he came up with. I don't see any changes right now. I haven't heard of them really doing too much. I know there's a lot of people upset. The New York State Chiefs, Western New York State Chiefs, I know have all written letters. There was a big meeting up in Albany here a week or 2 ago that I know a bunch of chiefs attended to maybe get some changes done to bail reform, and I haven't heard any results out of it yet.
Now, there's another issue that goes along with the criminal justice reform. Law enforcement in New York State, these days, they're not releasing as many mugshots as they used to. Apparently, the reason for this is that other websites were taking the pictures, posting them online, and demanding money if the suspect in the photo wanted the photo to be taken down. That's an issue that was raised in April of 2019. Here we are in February, late February 2020. What are the exact rules on giving mugshots out to the public and the media these days, Police Chief Griffith?
It's a lot of departments will post them on their website or Facebook page. We've never done that in Alfred. The only time I've ever released mugshots is if it's been a request through a FOIL. And as far as what the law says, the New York State strongly encourages that we don't send them out, but we're not prohibited from doing it. So a lot of agencies still do it. We've never really done that here in Alfred. It's just the way that we've always kind of been. For years, we never really had any place to do it unless we were requested. It is a little easier with the electronic media now, but we just haven't really got into that.
And we're going to take a quick break talking to Alfred Police Chief Paul Griffith. Stay with us.
The Ryan Agencies, your local, independent insurance agencies. The Ryan Agency employs 15 of your friends and neighbors. They live, shop, and support our community. When you buy insurance from the Ryan Agency, you support local families. Contact the Ryan Agencies today, your local source for all things insurance.
Insurance protection you can rely on. The Ryan Agency.
Checking in now at meteorologist Gary Best, who says maybe raining tonight, maybe snow later in the week.
That's right. We've got some rain coming up later today and tonight, and then it may snow here by the end of the week with colder temperatures moving in by then, Brian. This morning, sunrise was at 6:55. It'll set at 5:53 tonight, and for today and through this afternoon, partly sunny, 45 to 50. Then light rain develops during tonight, maybe a little bit of wet snow or sleet mixed in, low temperature mid-30s. Otherwise, it's cooler with occasional rain showers on Tuesday, up near 40. Chance of showers Tuesday night. One more day of rain on Wednesday, high temperature mid-40s, and then colder with a chance of light snow or snow showers for Thursday and Friday. Brian?
Thank you, Gary Best. Back with Alfred Village Police Chief Paul Griffith. Governor Andrew Cuomo has talked about wanting to legalize marijuana. This follows, what was it he did last year? Decriminalized it?
Well, it's been decriminalized in New York State for 20, almost 30 years. It's not a crime in New York State to have small amounts of it. What he did last year was decriminalized. Well, I guess you could actually have more marijuana and it still wasn't a crime, whereas it was prior to that. So you're just allowed to possess more. Where I guess that's the wrong term. You're not allowed to possess it at all because it's still a violation of New York State law. You could just have more where it remains a violation. But he is talking about legalizing certain amounts. I think similar to Colorado and California.
Talking to Alfred Police Chief Paul Griffith. What are your thoughts on the possibility of legalizing marijuana? What would that do to law enforcement in Allegheny County there in Alfred, Paul?
I think it would change things, especially in a college town. Marijuana is obviously the drug of choice here, and I'm not really sure how big the impact would be. DWIs would be different. Right now, if you get stopped and you've been smoking marijuana, all it has to do is be present in your system. THC is what we're looking for, the ingredient in marijuana that makes you high. That stays in your system for about 30 days. So if you smoked up within the last few hours, you're probably going to be arrested for the DWI, or DWAI drugs is what it's referred to. And then we take you to get blood, and it's going to show up in your system. So if you legalize it and it stays in your system for 30 days, I think they would have to do something like alcohol and be able to come up with a level of it in your system as far as DWIs go. Now, as far as the way this would impact the colleges, I don't know if the colleges' policies would change. Right now, their policies say it's prohibited on their campuses. But if it gets legalized, I don't know really where that would go. I guess it remains to be seen. If I know Colorado's having issues with people in support roles for the schools. Bus drivers are having a heck of a time with bus drivers passing their drug tests. They've got school administrators from high schools and teachers that are driving the buses because they can't get bus drivers now to pass it. I would think New York State would probably have those similar problems.
Wanted to ask you this. I'm on a website called courthousenews.com, and that seems to be leaning left in support of the new bail reform laws in New York State. It says that the poor are disproportionately affected by the cash bail system, while the wealthier people accused of crimes can afford to await trial in home confinement or under other restrictions. Was that what you found under the old rules, and what are you finding under the new bail reform rules, Police Chief Griffith?
Well, under the old rules, bail, just so everybody knows, it's not a punishment. Bail was set to make sure that you return to court. That was the big reason for bail. Now, the more money you have, the more chances you have for not returning to court because you probably have more money to run. Say, if you're a millionaire, you could leave the country pretty easily. Most people in Allegheny County do not fit in this category. Most students that we deal with here don't fit in this category. Bail was usually set at $2,000 to $3,000, which a lot of people could afford. They would pay it on a credit card or whatnot. The other thing that happened is within a day or two, our probation department would come and interview people to release them without paying bail. And they would release them under their rules, where they would have to come in and meet with them once a week or whatnot. So probation department would do that. So most people got out of jail without having to pay bail, and the ones that could afford to pay paid. And bail is returned to you minus, I think, 3% that the state keeps. So people going to jail and not being able to get out because they couldn't afford bail was very, very rare. A lot of times, if somebody couldn't afford bail and probation interviewed them, if they were eligible, they would let them out. And what would make them not eligible is the fact that they might say, I'm not going to show back up for court, or they're not cooperative with the jail or the people over there, so they're deemed a flight risk, so they didn't let them out. So yeah, I never saw anybody stay in jail that shouldn't have been there. And a lot of people that were there for a long time were there because they needed to be there because they wouldn't have come back to court on their own.
With that, we have to leave it. Always good talking with Alfred Village Police Chief Paul Griffith. Chief, thanks for joining us today.
It's been my pleasure, Brian.